Hello, everyone. It's Rory at the Eurovision site, and again, joined by Stuart here as well, which is fantastic. And yes, we're here to kick off our recaps for Super Saturday, which was very tiring to say the least. I think sort of national selections going on for roughly about 9 hours or so. So that was a lot of drama. But the first one to sort of begin and kick us off for Super Saturday was Estonia, and they selected their entrant through Eesti Laul 2023. We had our two semi-finals in January on the 12th and 14th, and then we had to wait an entire month to see who would end up representing Estonia on the 11th of February, the Saturday just gone as we're recording this. And yes, we now have a winner. Alika will represent Estonia with her song Bridges. So I guess just for getting us started, I mean, what do you make of Alika winning?
It's a good win. It wasn't my preference, but talking about Alina, I think they've done a really good pick. It was quite a classy performance, and she's got a really strong voice. Really enjoyed the song. So yeah, really happy with it. I think it was a strong performance. I liked the gimmick with the piano. I thought that was a nice touch. Yeah, so we'll see how they take it forward with Eurovision, but I think Estonia can be very happy with their choice.
Yeah, to be fair, I'm kind of the same. I think it wasn't my favorite going into the selection, but I knew that it was the fan favorite kind of going in because I think it was Alika versus Sissy versus Ollie as well. So like it was like a three-horse race essentially going into the final. But I wasn't surprised that Alika won because maybe it was more accessible compared to
Yeah,
the other songs that were in the semi-final in the super final, should I say. Um, but you know she did a really strong performance. I think
yeah,
you know the self-playing piano I think really worked well in her favor, and she helped to kind of create like a little world inside her. And I think that like with the way that it was staged, I think it looked really quite nice and very like professional as well. So I can tell why people kind of got sort of what's the right word, drawn in, I
yeah,
think is the right
yeah.
word to the performance, which is it was fine, you know. And vocally she was top level as well, which is fantastic. Um, but I think as well, you know, we have to bring up the sort of televoting results for the super final, should I say? And I think yeah, so there was three songs that advanced from the super final, which were Alika, Ollie, and Bedwetters. And Bedwetters kind of came out of nowhere as well, which is kind of a surprise actually. I mean, what did you make of the songs that were in the super final?
Uh, oh, they three songs, really good bunch. I mean, Bedwetters, it was a odd performance, but it was a really good song. I thought it was a good song. And then Venom was my favorite. So real pleased that that got into that stage, and I think it ended up coming second, just missing out. I think what happened is Bedwetters and Venom quite kind of similar genre, not the same, but similar enough that maybe that split the vote and it let Alika push forward and win. But I thought it was a really good top three. There was other songs when that whole that could have made it there as well. It was a really strong national final, the strongest one I think of what I've seen this year. I was really impressed. But yeah, Venom, just love that song a lot. Um, it's a wee bit of a throwback to that kind of noughties era, like strong kind of rocky songs. But I still think it fits for 2023. I think he did a great job. And then Bedwetters, there was a lot to look for in that performance, but it was a good song, and I can see the appeal for that as well.
Yeah, I definitely think you are right in saying that. I think Better Winners and Ollie split the vote. I think for people who were into that kind of post-punk kind of genre, because I mean, both of them like they were different songs, obviously, but they were sort of within the same vein of each other, which kind of I think then split the vote, which then let Alika come out on top. So for those of you who didn't know about the televote percentages for the rest of the semi-final, not for the semi-final, the super final, Alika won with 42% of the vote. Ollie came second with 33% of the vote, and then Bedwetters finished in third place with 25% of the vote. So yeah, if Bedwetters and Ollie weren't in the same genre, or if it was, for example, maybe the fourth place, which was Melik, I think that might have made things a little bit more diverse. I think it would have been a bit more of an interesting split, I think. But we'd see. To be fair, I wouldn't be surprised if Melik was in the super final. I think Ollie would have won. I think.
Okay.
Yeah, but
I'd
that
go with that.
I mean, we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a good super final, I think, and it represented the kind of music scene that is definitely taking over in Estonia right now, I think, as well. So, you know, it seemed like it was on track for what was to come, basically. But yes, of course, obviously, you know, we had 12 songs taking part in Eesti Laul this in the final. We'll just run through them very quickly. It was Melik with To You, Inger with Awaiting You, Yannick with House of Glass, Elisa with Bad Philosophy, ML's with So Good with What You Do, Bedwetters with Monsters, Andreas Pom with Why Do You Love Me, Alika's Bridges, Annette and Freddie's You Need to Move On, Ollie's Venom, Mia with Uksam Korega, and then Cece with Lighthouse. So I guess, like, what do you make of the other songs that were in this selection? And do you think maybe there should have been some switches in who qualified to the super final?
Oh, that's a really good question. What I will say is, like I said earlier, it was a really strong show. I think there was a really good 12 songs in there. There was obviously ones I liked more in that. Ones that stood out for me were I really liked House of Glass and Lighthouse as well. And then Mel's So Good as well. I thought that was a really good song. So I think Lighthouse could have got to that top as well. I think that would have been she did really well. I think I think Ceci will be back, and I think a year going to Eurovision for Estonia is not out of the question for her. She's got great songs and a great voice. The other one that I liked was Mia. That was the wild card one, so that never originally got through. But that song was super catchy. So maybe that was just for me. But yeah, that was one of my top ones. But that didn't really do well in the results. I think that got zero from both, or maybe it did get a point from the jury. I can't remember. But yeah, really strong lineup. So I could argue for a few of the other songs. Like House of Glass, I thought that was a really good performance, and I liked when it cut to like him with the confetti around him, and then going from stage to like I think it would have been a pre-recorded video thing. So I really liked that strong performance. And it was a good song. So there was a few in there. Like I said, I think it was a really strong final. When I watched the semis, I wasn't overly impressed, but I think having that gap of like a month, even though it pushed it towards this really chaotic busy Saturday, having that gap I think really helped in the staging and stuff that brought giving the artist time to kind of work on it and then being on a bigger stage. It was just a super show.
Yeah, definitely. I think, you know, having that sort of period in between sort of the semi-finals and the final did mean that they could sort of scale up the staging, because I mean the semi-finals were held in like it wasn't a studio, it was the VMC Artium or whatever, but I like it's a very small venue, and so the stage was basically just a square, like a boxing ring almost. So it didn't really give a lot of options for the artists to kind of do any kind of staging. So it was quite nice actually when we had the final in a bigger space with sort of LEDs in the background, so that we could have a little bit more sort of artistic creativity, I think is the right word. So yeah, it was quite good actually. I think it was quite a nice on that front, that we were able to have a bit more diversity in what we were seeing, instead of just like, you know, seeing the same stage show over and over again. So that was, yeah. So yeah, my number one going into this was Melik. That was by far and away my favorite song. It reminded me so much of the sort of songs that you would hear in like sort of teen dramas like Scam, Skins, like those kinds of style, like 90s kind of polished grunge. Yeah, I don't know if that's the right word for it. Um, so yeah, so that was like my favorite going into it, and I mean to see them come in fourth place, I think it killed me to think that it couldn't make it into the super final. But I understand maybe it wasn't for everyone, and the awkwardness. It is. I feel like it's one of those like places or like one of those like concepts that you either get or you don't. So I was
Yeah,
kind
yeah,
of
definitely.
yeah, so I was kind of a bit like, okay, right, okay, and maybe this would not hit too well for other people, so I can understand where that kind of came from. Um, I also really did like Annette and Freddie's "You Need to Move On." I did like their song in 2020 when they last took part, so it was quite nice to see them kind of come back again. I do think though that maybe it was a little bit too slow compared to some of the other songs that we were getting. I mean, for example, with Alika's Bridges, like it was slow, but it was dramatic at the same time. Whereas with "You Need to Move On," it was a little bit more like you're kind of just static and you're not really moving around. Like it didn't have the same sort of impact as Bridges would, to be fair. So I can understand why that didn't qualify, but I would have loved it if it did manage to make it in. And I've got to agree with you as well with Mia. I mean, you know, Uksam Gotta was like fantastic anyway as a song. And Mia as a person is amazing. For any of you who haven't watched it yet, I managed to speak to Mia ahead of the semifinals, and she is so incredibly down to earth. She basically didn't believe that she would even make it into the final. So when she managed to make it into the final, I bet she must have been thinking, "Oh my god, like how the hell did this happen?" So, you know, it's great when the public decides to like give you that second chance. So I really do feel like she got her deserved spot in the final, even if she did finish with 0 points at the end of it. So fingers crossed she can come back another year with another song that'll really appeal to the public a little bit more, and she can have a shot at actually going because her vocals are really really good. I really loved it. Um, but yeah, so with sort of all of the songs kind of presented, and now we have the selection finished. We're starting to get a few more songs now for Eurovision 2023. Do you think Estonia may have a chance at qualifying with Bridges, or do you think that it's kind of dead in the water?
It's certainly not dead in the water. I am not too worried about qualification for Estonia. I think they should qualify for uh, very easily. I know that it's a televote only this year, so that's going to change it in how that works. But I think it's got enough televote appeal to make it into the top 10 in that semi. I know that they're in the bigger semi with 16 songs, but I still think they should get through. And um, in the final, I think they could she could match Stefan. I think Stefan came at 11th in 2022. I think she could match it. I think it has televote appeal, but it will really appeal to the juries as well, and I think the juries will pump it up. So if you're looking for a kind of top goal, I would say 11th. I'd maybe top 10s beyond it. Let's see how the lineup goes. But I think they'd be really happy if they could match, the 11th place they got last year. Sort of
Mm.
mid-table is what I'm guessing. If she can hone in her performance, I mean, it was a top-notch performance anyway. So if she can she's got a couple of months to kind of work on that, and that'll be a bigger stage. So if she can own the bigger stage like she owned the stage at Eesti Laul, um, yeah, they could be onto a really good result. But I'm not worried about. I'd be really surprised if that was just sustained semi. I think it's a good enough song.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, so Estonia is performing in semi-final two, which so far is stacking up to be, well, I mean, I'm saying this as we only have half of the songs that are selected for this year, but so far it's seeming like it's stacking up to be the more unpredictable semi, I think. Semi-final one already has some big hitters in there already, like Norway is definitely going to be qualifying. For example, Czechia will also be qualifying too. Like there are already some certain qualifiers that are already in the first semi-final, whereas in the second semi-final, things are a little bit more unsure, I guess, so far anyway. We'll see whether or not once we start getting internal selections as well, because we haven't even talked about internal selections yet, because national final season is just taking over everything. Once we hear some of the internal selections, that could maybe change things. But so far, from what I'm seeing, it seems like it's quite unpredictable. So it does seem like it has, because it's quite a strong, like solid song. I do think it has a chance to make it in. I wouldn't say it would win the semi-final. I wouldn't say that.
No, no.
But I do think it would have a shot at maybe being like maybe top five, maybe like kind of fifth or sixth in the semi-final. But going into the final, I do think it would probably get a mid-table result as well. I think maybe it's because we as Euro fans, we kind of sense what is popular and like what will do well. And given that fact, we've had quite a lot of people, like women on pianos, men on pianos, like with these kinds of styles of stagings and stuff, with these very competent songs, we kind of can guess that they would be in this kind of, oh yeah, it's nice, it's in the show, but it won't win kind of deal. Now I'm totally, open to being wrong about this. So whether or not it actually happens, we'll have to wait and see. But I do think it'll probably be like I want to say maybe like 12th to 15th place, perhaps. I wouldn't be surprised if it was sort of lower left hand side, like higher right hand side kind of the scoreboard. But again, it depends on how Europe is feeling on the night, I think. Whether or not it'll happen, we'll just have to wait and see. But yeah, so we'll see how it kind of works out. And I guess just sort of as one sort of final question, I mean, what do you think Estonia can take from Eesti Laul this year that they can improve on for next year?
It was a really solid show. Excellently done. The question, the idea of super finals. I mean, that result could have been different if there was no super final, and that's always got to be something. That there's always pros and cons to that super final, having that. And then when they go into super final, it's not like they perform again. It's just a recap of their performance, and the voting opens again. But that's the way it's been for years, and I think that's fair. I think people know what they're working towards. But in terms of lineup, if they can match this year or even exceed it, I mean, I was so impressed with the songs. I feel when I was watching the semis last month, the qualifiers were pretty obvious, or to me anyway. There wasn't any kind of controversy there. So I think maybe a stronger lineup in the semis is always going to be ideal. But in terms of that final and the staging, no, it was absolutely top notch. So if they can match that next year, that'd be good. This year, different from last year, they dropped. They had quarterfinals last year. They didn't do that this year. That probably made sense. But yeah, a really strong result. I hope Ollie comes back at some point with like a similar sort of song, because I've just been blasting that for the last couple of days. It's great. So we'll see. Really interesting show.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah. I mean, I can't really say too much. I think, Estonia has a bit of like, they've got it down to a formula now at this point, and like, they know how to put on like a proper slick stage show, like for they had humor in there, they had sort of cultural representation, because I think it was like in the postcards for each of the artists, I think Tallinn was like the European capital of culture or something like that, so they were having like little bits of stuff that you can do in Tallinn for the year, I guess. So that was quite nice actually, to kind of have that like added details as well. So yeah, they know how to sort of put on a show now, which I think is good. I do think it was a very good idea to move away from the quarterfinals in 2022, because it ended up being like 40 songs, then being whittled down to 20, which got whittled down to 10. It just added an extra step that didn't really need to be there. So I think it was a good idea that they kind of slimmed it back down to semifinals. What I would change though, I don't, well, I do agree with you in the sense that it needs to be a bit stronger in terms of the songs that are being sort of selected because I don't know if it's the same with you, but like at least with me anyway, I have this idea that like Estonia is very much either the Spotify sort of country or a country that like that will send really daring kind of experimental songs, for example, or songs that will make it into the semifinals. So for example, I mean, I'll always bring this song up, Parmumeng, which was in Eesti Laul 2019. It had jaw harps and loops and like tribal, not maybe not tribal, but like a flute kind of thing. I don't know, like very like folkloric anyway. And we haven't really seen that in the past couple of years. It's been a lot more sort of modern and contemporary. So I think if we had like a little bit more of the left field kind of entries, I think that would kind of spice things up a little bit, just to add a
Oh,
little bit of extra folkiness into it, I think would be quite nice. But otherwise, I think it kind of has really not got many notes to take, I think. Maybe just a little bit more diversity and well, maybe potentially slimming down the super final from 3 to 2. I think that's a good idea because at least then like it's not going to split a vote then. I think at least then you'll have more of a definitive choice. I mean, other countries do it as well. Like Denmark has 3 in a semi-final for in a super final, for example. Um, so I'm not surprised that it would be like that. Norway sometimes has 4, so like it just depends on the country. But if it was me, I would just put it down to 2. But anyway, we'll see how we get on. But yeah, so with that, I guess that's kind of it. Eesti Laul is done for another year, so I guess that's kind of handy. We can kind of relax now, and yeah, so please let us know what you think. Do you agree with what we say, or do you have a completely other different opinion altogether? Do you think our opinions are absolute tripe? Do you agree with them at all? Like, let's have a conversation here. So, be sure to follow that Eurovision site on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Tumblr. We're on everything. Be sure to follow that Eurovision podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts as well. Subscribe to the YouTube channel down below. Hit the notification bell, do all the liking, commenting, sharing, all that kind of stuff as well. And yeah, we've got a very long few months ahead of us now, so we've got to sort of be prepared for what's to come. So I think it'll be pretty interesting. So yeah, so shall we all say goodbye?
thanks so much for watching.
Bye.
Bye.